Hello there, it's Sam Green here, giving practical and sensible health and safety compliance advice for small and medium-sized businesses. So if you're an owner or a manager, this week's topic is mental health. This is Mental Health Awareness Week. And I think it's fair to say right at the start that we all experience stress to some extent or degree in our lives. So in this video, I'm just going to cover what are the legal requirements for employers. Secondly, what you are and what, most importantly, what you're not responsible for. Why managing stress makes such good business sense. 6 simple tests you can decide whether stress is a factor in your business. And if it is, what's the one document that you need to produce? There are 10 practical steps that you can take, and then there'll be some links and some further help right at the end. So, although there are no regulations specifically dealing with mental health or stress, it is a legal duty for employers to manage under the Health and Safety at Work Act. So what don't you need to do? Well, you don't need to be responsible for managing people's personal stresses. And so there are actually 6 ways that we all experience stress. I think it's fair to say most of us really just think of one of these 6 that comes right at the end. So the 6 stresses are physiological or physical stress. That's exercise, posture, injuries, that kind of thing. Dietary stress. Insufficient or bad sleep or rest. Hormones. Stress, in particular stress hormones like adrenaline, cortisol and norepinephrine. Chemical stresses, that's things like drugs, whether they're prescribed or not, and pollution. And then finally, of course, psychological stress, which is thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs. And that's the stress that I think we most often think about. So how on earth do you decide whether stress is a factor for you as an employer? Well, there are 6 tests. If the job requires responsibility for others, so for example they are a manager or a carer, that can be stressful. If there's too much work, if inherently in the work there are very tight deadlines or very high demands, that's stress. Conversely, if there's not enough work, so in particular maybe a security guard who's just sat in a small cabin all day with nothing else to do, that can be particularly stressful. Number 4, if there's a blame culture, if there's a fear of failure, in particular think of jobs where failure, the results of failure might just be unacceptable. So if you're in one of the emergency response services, you can imagine the consequences of failure could be unacceptable to society. If the employee has a lack of control, or if there's an overbearing or bullying manager, so think about the culture and attitude in the business. And finally, number 6 is if the job design is inherently stressful, so things like shift patterns or very high physical demands. For example, warehouse work can be particularly stressful. Now, if any or all of those are ticked on your list in your particular organisation, then you really do need to produce a stress risk assessment. And what that will do is set out specifically what those stresses are in those particular roles and what you as an organisation are going to do about that. And that would be a legal requirement. So very important at this point, I think, to say that if a person comes to you as an employee with a diagnosed condition, a mental health condition, then really we should be referring them, they should be referring themselves to a relevant medical professional. They should really go to their GP and get a referral. A diagnosed mental health condition is protected characteristic under employment law, and if that is the case, again, I would really strongly recommend you get advice of a very good human resources consultant or an employment lawyer, and pop me a message at the end and I can recommend both of those if you live anywhere in the Midlands, East Midlands. So what's the business case? Well, stress and mental health costs UK businesses around £12 billion. 1 out of every 3 working days lost in the UK, on average that's 1 per person per year, is reported as a result of stress at work. Now, of course, they're the ones that are reported. You can imagine how many others people just write off as a headache or something else. They don't want to admit it. So because people don't want to talk about it, which is understandable, spotting stress and mental health at work can be really difficult. So I've got 7 things that you can look out for that are really good indicators that a person might be feeling more stressed and you might need to step in and provide some help. So if they're taking more time off, number 1. Number 2, if they're arriving later, so there's a change in behaviour. If they're more twitchy or nervous, number 3. Number 4, if their mood swings. And again, if you see that and that's not usual behaviour for them. If they become withdrawn, number 5. Number 6, if they lose motivation, if they lose commitment or confidence or focus. And number 7 is a really strong one, is if you start to see increased emotional reactions, if they're more tearful, if they're more sensitive, or if they're more aggressive at all. So what can you do? Well, there are 10 things you can do. Really simple things. Give employees an induction and include in that induction a really clear description of what the expectations are for the role. Number 2, make sure that they are and that they remain competent, and that is that they have the skills, knowledge and experience to do the job. Number 3, look out for symptoms, and in that list of 7 above. Number 4, be aware of other stresses that they might have. Remember, we were saying earlier that although you're not responsible for personal stresses, a person experiences all of those stresses, of course, all at the same time in their life. So provide good support, good supervision and management, and provide links. And I'm going to give you some useful links right at the end of where you can get really useful help. And again, a lot of that is free. Give employees some control over the nature, the amount, the type of work, where practical, in terms of what they can do. Leave communication channels open to talk to managers or yourself and explain the decisions that you made. Maintain a healthy working environment. So I'm just going to give you a short list of some of those things. So that's things like workstations, canteens, noise at work, light, temperature and seating, just working machinery and equipment. Where appropriate, manage working relationships, and that might mean stepping in with getting HR involved, and that's through a formal grievance, disciplinary or resolution meeting. And then number 10, be aware of non-work stresses such as illness or bereavement. So just to finish off, really, there are 5 places that you can get some really useful help. The Health and Safety Executive, they have a guide, a set of guides for employers and a set of guides for employees, which you can download, print off and hand out. Charities, organisations like Mind that provide training, information and support. Organisations like Birmingham Hospital Fund, BHSF, and they're not-for-profit organisations and they provide all sorts of training and helplines and again guidance documents. The Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, CIPD, have a guide they've just released literally this week. That's called the People Manager's Guide to Mental Health. And again, that's downloadable on their website for free. And finally, if you need, the 5th place you can get help is with a health and safety consultant. If you think you do need a stress risk assessment, just ping us a phone call or pop an inquiry through on our website, which is greensconsultancy.co.uk. So please like and subscribe if this video has been useful and helpful. If you want to see more articles or more videos, please have a look on our website or on the YouTube channel here. And if you need a stress risk assessment, just give us a call or log on. And thank you very much for listening.